Hello, and welcome to Soul Aligned CEO Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Mori, and today's episode is another solo episode. And to be honest, this topic was not the original one that I planned to speak about today. But this insight and reflection has been coming in so strongly for me personally this week that I felt like it should be an episode. So, what I want to discuss today is something I think all of us have dealt with at one point or another in our lives, and that's healing from heartbreak, and specifically heartbreak around a relationship that ended. Now, whether that relationship was a marriage that ended in divorce, a long-term or even short-term relationship that you felt like you had found your forever, or a childhood sweetheart that's still on your heart, it doesn't really matter the duration of the relationship. It's more that feeling and that bond that you have with another human that you experience life with. And that's a very sacred relationship. And if that ends and you didn't want it to, often then that leads to heartbreak. And so this topic kept coming into my mind and into my space from a personal reflection. And it was interesting to me because one thing that I always tell myself is healing isn't linear. And I do want to say that anything that I'm sharing today, this is not medical advice. I'm not a psychiatrist or counselor. I'm sharing to you from my own personal journey, because my journey started with a heartbreak, and that really catapulted me into a deeper journey and a deeper discovery of who I am, why I'm here, and really what this whole human journey is all about. So, having that type of relationship where you think you have found that person that is forever, in terms of forever in this lifetime, and then that relationship ends, you go through a period of normal stages of maybe disbelief, of sadness, of frustration, even anger. You don't want to accept it. And then you kind of get to that point where you realize this is your new current reality and you have a decision to make. And that process, whether it takes a few weeks, a few months, a few years, it doesn't matter. One thing that has stuck out to me on my journey is it's not a race. And oftentimes, I think as a human, and especially in our ego mind, we want to check something off as done. Okay, I've healed. I've gotten over that. I've moved on. These are phrases that are often used in reference to healing from a relationship. And the truth of the matter is, in my mind, if you really truly love someone and you truly had a soul connection, I don't think that that love and that connection necessarily ever goes away. It's still like a piece of you, and it becomes part of who you are going to be. And so it's really easy then for something in this realm to remind you of that, whether it's a song, some pictures on a Facebook memory, or maybe you even have a dream out of nowhere. And that's okay because, as I said earlier, we're not in this linear space of, okay, I experienced this. Now I'm healed. Now emotions can never come back up again. I don't think that that is the case, at least not for me. And that's okay. It's okay to have memories. It's okay to hear a song and smile and remember maybe a vacation or a special occasion that you had. Those things don't just disappear. It's not like you clear out your hard drive, and put in a new one. Um, so it's okay, I think, is really what I want to start with. And when you get in that space where you are feeling something, I think the first thing that I want to suggest is don't be frustrated. Don't go into that space of, I healed from this. Like, why am I feeling this again? Why am I having these memories? Again, because it's a part of you. It's in your body in a way. So the first thing that I do anytime that I am experiencing heartbreak or a memory about a heartbreak is I remind myself that this is not occurring now. Like, when did the relationship actually occur? Was it a few months ago, a year ago, several years ago? That's when that specific situation occurred that resulted in a decision that the relationship was no longer going forward. So it's not occurring in this now moment. So whatever potential feeling of sadness or regret or frustration that might be coming up because you heard a song or you saw a Facebook memory, remind yourself that it's not occurring right now. And so then you can take a step back and ask yourself, okay, it's not occurring right now. And so what is it that I'm actually feeling? Is it a fondness? Is it a sadness? Is it just a remembrance? And then you can identify it a little bit easier and then not jump straight to that it has to be this painful memory, if that makes sense. So after I remind myself that this experience is not occurring now and whatever has kind of triggered this emotional response in me, that it's okay that my body doesn't know necessarily that it's not occurring right now. And so after I kind of get myself into that level set, then I remind myself, what am I grateful for? Because a lot of times when, especially if the heartache is new or the heartbreak is newer and you've recently broken up with someone, I think a lot of times we will focus on maybe things that didn't work out or things that were painful or caused you sadness or anger or whatever the emotion that you don't want. But I'm almost positive that there had to be some really beautiful and extraordinary experiences that you potentially shared with that person. And so, if in that moment of pain or loneliness or reflection, you can remind yourself about what you are grateful for, you'll notice that that energy shifts. And instead of being potentially sad that it's no longer occurring in this now moment, instead be grateful that you got to experience that, that you had a friendship and a relationship that was that meaningful, that because it ended, it really, really hurt. So there's kind of like a scale, and I'm tearing up a little bit because there's in a way a scale of, of course, how much and how deeply you love someone. And then when it's no longer here, whether it's because of a loss of a person physically or because you parted ways, you're still bearing that feeling of love. And when it's missing, it can bring up a lot of emotion. What I have learned to do and what has really helped me heal from heartbreak is to be really grateful that I got to experience that in the first place. Because I think a lot of times we forget that maybe not everybody has that deep of a love in this lifetime. Maybe not everyone is as fortunate to have experienced that kind of friendship. And so to kind of shake out of that loneliness or sadness, if you can think about the things that you're grateful for that you got to experience, and it can still hurt that it's not currently happening, but can you shift your mindset just a little bit to be grateful that you did get to experience it? And somehow, for me at least, that lifts that heaviness and it makes it lighter. So the other thing that I think about is, how can I learn and how can I grow? And not specifically from any particular relationship, but in the current moment that you're experiencing that feeling. So if I'm experiencing a feeling of loneliness or sadness or reflection that is bringing up some energy that's painful for me, I acknowledge that and really sit with what I'm feeling and ask myself, what is it trying to show me? I don't braid myself as to like, why are you feeling this? This was years ago. You should be done. You should be healed. I sit with it and I ask myself, what is this showing me now? What is it reflecting to me now that I'm feeling this loneliness or sadness? And oftentimes, I think it's a reflection about your current energy and your current space, and not even so much about that particular relationship, but it's showing you an energy that your body is embodying in this now moment. And you're remembering feeling a similar emotion that was as that heartbreak brought to you. And so a lot of times we're correlating things based on how we're feeling in that moment. And then we go to what we know. We go to that pattern of, okay, I am feeling a little bit of loneliness. It must be that sadness. It must be that pain or remembrance of a relationship that's no more. And it can be. But I would challenge you to reflect on, could it possibly be showing you something in this current moment that's a similar energy? And then when you have that discovery and you're able to see, okay, potentially this feeling that I'm experiencing right now of loneliness or sadness or heartbreak is a very similar one that I felt at that same time when that relationship ended. So my mind and body are kind of correlating it to what's occurring in the current space. And so there's so many reasons that you could be feeling similar emotions. And I think we have a tendency to instantly reflect onto what was familiar or what was the most painful. And so oftentimes, if you're feeling something in this now moment, I would really suggest moving your body, because that emotion is oftentimes kind of stuck somewhere in your body. And you may even feel it with a tight neck or shoulders or back or a headache. If you can get outside if you can, if you're somewhere where the weather is permitting, and really just move your body, whether it's a simple walk, just going to a park, going outside and moving and being really intentional about being present in your body and understanding What am I feeling? This sadness, this loneliness. My mind wants to take me back to that relationship that caused maybe a similar pattern of feelings. But what's occurring in this now moment that could be resembling those same feelings? And when you let it come out of your body, it's often easier to see the correlation. And so by doing that, I'm asking myself, what can I learn in this now moment? How can I grow? How can I realize that I am experiencing this and it's drawing me back to another time? But I can choose to be now here in this moment. I can acknowledge the feelings, but I don't have to let it take me into a loop or into a spiral. Does that make sense? How are you now in the current moment? What would be potentially causing you to feel those feelings now? And have you traced back to a prior memory? And so that's a lot to kind of go through in that moment, and it takes practice. And I think the first thing, anytime you are feeling any sort of unsettling emotion, is to acknowledge where you are and that it's okay to be feeling those things. And you in no way have to rush into anything. If you don't feel like going for a walk, don't. If you'd rather take a bath, do that. If you'd rather crawl into bed and pull the covers over your head and cry, do that, because the emotion is coming from somewhere. All I'm trying to suggest is have an awareness of where your mind always takes you to anytime you're experiencing that emotion, because that's what gets you caught in that cycle or in that loop. Okay. So once you can identify how you're feeling and have an awareness of this is occurring now, and really start to understand what that emotion might be reflecting back to you, it is okay to reflect on memories and feelings of love and partnership and friendship. And it's okay to have that love like in your body and to connect and have grace for yourself and for that person. We're all here experiencing this journey, and relationships are really the way that we connect not only to another person, but also to ourselves. And when a relationship ends, it's an enormous adjustment, and it's a reflection on who you are and what you are maybe supposed to be doing here. And so it's okay to have those memories. I know I've said that 10 times, but you can fully be present in this moment, acknowledge that maybe you do have a memory or maybe something did trigger a feeling of sadness. Is it reflecting on anything that's currently happening in your life? Maybe yes, maybe no. But I want to try to help you get out of that spiral where then you go within and you withdraw and you don't have to feel that sadness and pain for long periods of time. You choose. You can say, okay, I'm ready to acknowledge this and I'm ready to move on. And I'm ready to allow myself to be okay with experiencing those types of emotions. So, this whole concept of healing from heartbreak is a little bit of a play on words, because I don't know that it's necessarily the heartbreak that you're always healing from. It's the association of those emotions that you experienced when something that you thought was going to continue didn't. And really learning from that experience and having the gratitude has been the most pivotal thing for me and has really allowed me to find a place of peace and of grace and of really continuing love and gratitude that I was able to experience something that was so joyful. And I can look back on that from that perspective. So I hope that this conversation has been meaningful and insightful. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this came in so clearly to me this week with my own experience of being triggered into some feelings that usually would spiral into loneliness and sadness. And then I stopped and I really reflected myself and I did what I just shared with you. And I realized that my mind was taking me back to a period of time when I felt those emotions and I was putting them into this now moment as that particular experience when really it was reflecting something totally different to me. And once I sat with that and realized that, I was able to really just step up and step out and like be embodied and to be happy and be at peace. And that's what I wish for all of you. And so I hope that in some small way, my experience with this and sharing with you what has worked for me will be helpful to you also. I'd love to know what you do as you are kind of going through the healing from a heartbreak experience. Please reach out and please share. I appreciate the support of the podcast. And until next time, I wish you much peace, love, and joy as you pursue being soul aligned.